Welcome, gents. What happens when you meet someone who cannot be pushed, bribed, or tricked into submission? That is where the Sigma male stands apart. The most dangerous person is not the one who shouts the loudest or throws their weight around. It is the one who cannot be controlled. In a world where people are constantly nudged to follow trends, bow to pressure, or play games to earn approval, the Sigma male is a glitch in the system. He simply does not move according to the usual rules. If others play manipulation like a chess match, he does not flip the board or throw the pieces. He just refuses to sit down, leaving the other player confused and frustrated. This independence unsettles people because it removes the easy buttons they rely on. You cannot trap him with fear, you cannot corner him with guilt, and you cannot wave shiny distractions in his face and expect him to follow. It is like trying to train a cat with commands. The more you try, the more it stares at you like you are the crazy one. Here's the encouragement. If you carry that Sigma spirit, do not think of it as a weakness, it is your strength. The fact that you cannot be controlled means you are free to live on your own terms. People may not always understand you, but deep down they respect you because they cannot bend you. And that is real power. Let's dive into Gents. Number 1. They are willing to start from zero, which removes the fear of loss that enslaves most people. One of the most remarkable traits of a Sigma is their ability to start from zero without fear. Most people are terrified of losing what they have. The thought of going back to square one keeps them trapped in jobs they hate, relationships that drain them, and habits that kill their growth. But Sigmas see zero differently. To them, zero is not the end. It is a fresh canvas. It is freedom. Think about how many people cling to old phones with cracked screens, outdated software, and chargers held together by tape simply because they do not want the hassle of starting over. A Sigma would toss that phone, buy a simple one if they had to, and carry on. They are not enslaved by the fear of loss because they know their value does not come from things but from what they can rebuild. This makes them very dangerous in the best sense. You cannot hold a Sigma hostage with the threat of losing status, money, or approval. Imagine trying to blackmail someone who can laugh and say, "Fine, take it, I'll start again." What weapon do you have left? None. Sigmas understand that everything in life can be rebuilt if you still have your mind, your discipline, and your courage. That is why they treat starting from zero not as punishment, but as a test of strength. They know that when you are not afraid to lose, you live lighter, freer, and bolder. Here is the funny part. While others panic at the thought of beginning again, Sigmas often come back even stronger. It is like resetting a video game after losing. They already know the shortcuts, the traps, and the hidden rewards. So their second run is usually better than their first. This is the real edge of a Sigma. The fear of loss enslaves most people, but for them, zero is not a prison. Zero is an open door. Number 2. Their value is never dictated by approval, which makes their confidence impossible to dismantle. One thing that makes Sigmas stand out is that their value is never dictated by approval, which makes their confidence impossible to dismantle. Most people do not realize how much of their confidence is borrowed. They rise when they get praise and sink when they are criticized. It is like living on someone else's Wi-Fi. The signal feels strong until the owner changes the password. Sigmas refuse to live like that. Their confidence comes from within, and because of that, it does not switch off when others disapprove. Think about how many times people change their opinions just to avoid being judged. Someone says they do not like your favorite movie, and suddenly you pretend you do not like it either. Sigmas never play that game. If they like a film, they like it. If they enjoy a hobby, they enjoy it. They are not embarrassed to stand alone because they are not looking for validation to confirm their choices. Here is where it gets funny. When you are not chasing approval, you start to notice how often people bend themselves out of shape just to fit in. It is like watching someone argue over pizza toppings they do not even eat, just to look cool. Sigmas avoid that circus completely. Their self-worth is already secured, so they do not need applause to keep going. This inner confidence makes them steady in moments when others fall apart. A Sigma can lose popularity, face criticism, or even stand in total opposition, yet they remain calm. That kind of resilience confuses people who rely on control because there is no switch to flip. So what can we learn here? If you want confidence that no one can dismantle, stop treating approval like oxygen. Build your own foundation. That is the Sigma way. And it is the reason their presence carries such quiet power. Number 3, they carry patience as a shield, waiting out those who try to manipulate them until the game collapses. One of the cleverest strengths of a Sigma is patience. They carry patience as a shield, waiting out those who try to manipulate them until the game collapses. Most people rush into battles. They argue, they react, they explode, and in doing so, they hand over control to whoever provoked them. A Sigma does the opposite. They know that silence and time can be deadlier than any outburst. Think about a chess match. A beginner jumps at the first move they see, while the master studies the board, waiting for the opponent to trap themselves. That is how Sigmas move in life. They let people reveal their own intentions. If someone is trying to deceive them, they do not panic. They simply wait, because they know that false motives always leak through in time. Patience is not weakness, it is strategy. Picture this: a manipulator tries to bait a Sigma with drama, expecting a heated reaction. Instead, the Sigma shrugs, maybe even makes a joke, and calmly carries on. Imagine how frustrating that is for the manipulator who was expecting fireworks. It is like trying to light a firework in the rain. Nothing happens. This calm approach creates a powerful shift. While everyone else is busy reacting, the Sigma remains steady. Their patience wears down the manipulator until the game collapses under its own weight. The trick is that the Sigma never has to lift a finger. Here is where the humor comes in. Waiting someone out does not just expose their tricks, it also saves you from embarrassing yourself. How many times have you argued furiously only to realize later you were wrong? Sigmas avoid that by giving time the job of revealing the truth. So when others waste energy in endless battles, the Sigma leans back, shielded by patience, and when the dust finally settles, they are still standing while the manipulator is left with nothing. That is the quiet brilliance of their approach. Number 4, they know how to end connections cleanly, which denies manipulators the lingering control they crave. One of the most powerful traits of a Sigma is the way they end connections. They know how to end connections cleanly, which denies manipulators the lingering control they crave. Most people struggle with this. They drag things out, keep replying to old messages, and leave doors half open. That is exactly what manipulators love, because as long as there is a crack in the door, they can slip back in. Sigmas operate differently. When they are done, they are done. It is not dramatic, it is not messy, it is final. Imagine deleting an app that keeps draining your battery. You do not pause to argue with the app. You just press uninstall and move on with your life. That is how a Sigma treats connections that are toxic or manipulative. This approach unsettles manipulators because their favorite weapon is hanging around. They thrive on guilt, on back and forth arguments, or on drawing people into endless explanations. A Sigma refuses to give them that satisfaction. By ending things cleanly, they remove all hooks and leave no space for games. Here is the funny part. People often mistake this for coldness. In reality, it is respect for their own peace of mind. A Sigma understands that leaving things half done is like keeping expired food in the fridge. It just stinks up the place. Clearing it out makes life simpler and fresher. Ending connections cleanly also shows strength. It means you do not need revenge, you do not need a dramatic exit, and you do not need to win the last word. The silence speaks for itself. And that silence is what frustrates manipulators the most, because it starves them of the attention they crave. So while others keep getting pulled back into cycles, Sigmas cut the rope. That clean break is what keeps them free, untouchable, and impossible to control. Number 5, they live by principles rather than trends, which shields them from being swayed by fleeting opinions. A Sigma is not moved by whatever happens to be popular today. They live by principles rather than trends, which shields them from being swayed by fleeting opinions. While most people chase the next big thing just to feel relevant, Sigmas stand on a foundation that does not wobble when the crowd changes direction. Think about fashion for a second. One year everyone is wearing skinny jeans, the next year it is baggy jeans, then suddenly it is something called cropped wide fit. Most people keep buying into it because they do not want to look out of place. A Sigma, they will stick to what feels right for them. If it is still a plain black tee, then that is what it will be, and they will wear it confidently. Their self-worth is not tied to whether a stranger likes their outfit or not. This attitude goes beyond clothes. It is how they make decisions in life. If everyone is suddenly chasing quick money schemes, a Sigma will step back and ask, Does this align with my values, or is this just hype? That ability to filter out noise saves them from wasting time, money, and energy. Here is where it gets funny. When trends die out, the same people who mocked the Sigma often end up embarrassed by what they once followed. Remember when everyone rushed to buy those huge selfie sticks? Now they are sitting in drawers collecting dust. Sigmas avoid that kind of regret because their choices come from principle, not pressure. Living by principles gives them consistency. It makes them dependable and difficult to manipulate because you cannot twist someone who already knows what they stand for. While fleeting opinions change like the weather, the Sigma remains steady, guided by something deeper. And that is why they stand out. Not because they chase attention, but because they are too grounded to be moved by the tide. Number 6, they cannot be bribed with shallow rewards because their focus is rooted in deeper meaning. One thing that sets Sigmas apart is that they cannot be bribed with shallow rewards because their focus is rooted in deeper meaning. Most people can be distracted with shiny things. Offer them a little praise, a small raise, or the chance to look important in front of others, and they will jump. Sigmas see through that. They are not moved by surface rewards because they are playing a much bigger game. Think about it like this. Imagine someone tries to bribe a Sigma with free pizza. Most people would be thrilled. A Sigma might smile and say, "Thanks, but what exactly do you want in return?" They know nothing comes free when someone is trying to buy their loyalty. And besides, they would rather eat a simple meal they chose themselves than accept a feast tied to strings. This makes them difficult to control. Manipulators rely on bait. They dangle titles, approval, or small comforts, hoping people will chase them like a dog after a bone. The Sigma does not chase. They stand still and watch, making the manipulator more nervous than if they had resisted outright. Here is where it gets amusing. People sometimes call Sigmas stubborn because they refuse to get excited about things others would fight over. But the truth is, it is not stubbornness, it is clarity. They know the difference between temporary perks and long-term value. They would rather focus on purpose, growth, or peace of mind than settle for a shiny distraction. This deeper focus protects them from being trapped. If you cannot be bought with shallow rewards, you cannot be controlled. You become free to choose based on meaning, not bait. And that is what makes the Sigma so dangerous to systems that thrive on manipulation. They do not fall for crumbs because they are already busy baking their own bread. Number 7. When threats or fear tactics do not work on them, they become unpredictable in the eyes of those who try to dominate. One of the reasons Sigmas are hard to deal with is simple. When threats or fear tactics do not work on them, they become unpredictable in the eyes of those who try to dominate. Most people respond to fear in one of two ways. They either freeze or they obey. That is exactly why fear works so well as a tool of control. But with a Sigma, that tactic falls flat. Imagine trying to scare a Sigma with the classic, "If you do not play by my rules, you will lose everything." A Sigma might lean back and say, "All right, then I will start again." That response leaves the other person completely off balance because the usual weapon of fear just bounced off. You cannot intimidate someone who is not afraid of starting fresh or standing alone. This unpredictability is what makes Sigmas so difficult to dominate. If you threaten someone else, you can usually guess their reaction. They will try to appease, beg, or retreat. With a Sigma, you do not know if they will calmly walk away, laugh in your face, or simply ignore you. And nothing frustrates a manipulator more than not being able to read their target. Think about it like trying to play chess with someone who does not panic when you take their queen. Instead of rushing to win, they quietly shift their pawns until you realize you are the one about to lose. That is how Sigmas handle fear tactics. The humor in this is that people who try to dominate often end up dominating themselves. They waste energy setting up elaborate threats, only to watch the Sigma stroll past like someone ignoring a wet paint sign. And that is the real power of the Sigma. Fear loses its grip on them, and once fear is gone, so is control. Number 8. They do not move according to pressure, but according to choice, which makes their actions deliberate and unstoppable. Sigmas are not pushed around by pressure. They do not move according to pressure, but according to choice, which makes their actions deliberate and unstoppable. Most people give in when they are squeezed. They say yes to things they do not want, they rush into decisions out of fear, or they bend to keep others happy. Pressure makes them fold. But with sigmas, it does not work that way. Picture someone at a restaurant being told, "Hurry up and order, the waiter is waiting." Most people will blurt out the first thing they see just to get it over with. A sigma will calmly flip through the menu and take their time, even if the waiter is tapping a pen. Why? Because they refuse to let pressure dictate their choice. They will order what they want, not what stress pushes them into. This trait shows up in bigger areas of life too. When society says you are falling behind, rush and do this, the sigma takes a breath and decides if it is truly worth doing. When friends push them into trends or shortcuts, they step back and ask, does this align with me? By moving from choice instead of pressure, they build lives that are steady, not shaky. Here is the funny part. People mistake this for stubbornness, but it is really discipline. The sigma knows that a rushed choice usually comes with regret. They would rather be slow and sure than fast and foolish. And this is why their actions feel unstoppable. Every move comes from intention, not panic. Every step is chosen, not forced. Pressure may bend the crowd, but it only sharpens the sigma's focus. When you move from choice instead of pressure, you stop being a puppet. You become the one holding the strings. And that is exactly what makes sigmas so powerful. Number 9, they break cycles of control in relationships, jobs, and society, leaving behind systems that once thrived on obedience. Sigmas have a rare ability that unsettles people who rely on control. They break cycles of control in relationships, jobs, and society, leaving behind systems that once thrived on obedience. Where others fall in line and accept things as they are, sigmas question the rules and walk away from traps that keep most people stuck. Think about how many people stay in jobs they hate just because they are afraid of rocking the boat. They keep silent, nod their heads, and convince themselves this is how life works. A sigma will not tolerate that for long. If a workplace becomes nothing but chains, they would rather take the risk of starting over than stay in quiet misery. That decision alone breaks a cycle that many people never escape. It is the same in relationships. Some people stay tied to toxic dynamics because they fear loneliness or judgment. A sigma is different. They would rather end the connection cleanly than live under manipulation or control. They understand that peace is worth more than pretending everything is fine while drowning inside. Here's the funny side of it. Society often expects obedience, like when people follow pointless rules without even knowing why. Remember when schools banned chewing gum as if it was a global crisis? Sigmas are the ones asking, is this really about gum or is it just about control? That refusal to play along breaks patterns that keep others quietly compliant. This is why sigmas are so hard to manage. They do not just resist control in their own lives. Their example shows others it is possible to walk away too. That ripple effect is what truly scares systems built on obedience. A sigma does not rebel for the sake of rebellion. They simply refuse to be trapped. And once a sigma steps out of a cycle of control, that system loses its power forever. Number 10, people cannot read them easily, which creates an aura of mystery that unsettles manipulators. One of the most unsettling things about sigmas is how hard they are to read. People cannot read them easily, which creates an aura of mystery that unsettles manipulators. Most people give away their feelings like a neon sign. If they are angry, you can see it. If they are excited, you can hear it. If they are nervous, it shows all over their body. That makes them easy targets for anyone who wants to play games. But sigmas, they keep things close to the chest. Imagine a manipulator trying to push a sigma's buttons. They expect anger, fear, or at least some sign they're winning. Instead, the sigma just looks calm, maybe even amused, and gives away nothing. That silence and control is worse than any reaction because it forces the manipulator to question whether their tricks are working. It is like trying to play poker against someone who never changes expression. After a while, the manipulator starts losing their cool instead. Here is the funny part. People sometimes get frustrated because they cannot tell what a sigma is thinking. They may say things like, "Why are you so quiet?" or "What's going on in your head?" The truth is that mystery is intentional. Sigmas know that when you reveal too much too quickly, you hand people a map of how to control you. Keeping things private is their way of protecting themselves. This unreadable nature also makes them more interesting. While others expose every detail of their lives for attention, sigmas understand the power of leaving questions unanswered. It is not about being secretive for no reason. It is about keeping their inner world safe from manipulation. And that is what unsettles those who rely on control. You cannot manipulate what you cannot predict. With Sigmas, the mystery itself becomes a shield, leaving manipulators frustrated, confused, and powerless. Number 11, they become immune to emotional traps, making them impossible to corner or guilt into submission. Sigmas have a rare skill that most people struggle with. They become immune to emotional traps, making them impossible to corner or guilt into submission. You know how some people throw around guilt like it is confetti at a party? After everything I did for you, or if you really cared, you would. These lines work on most people because they do not want to feel selfish or ungrateful. But Sigmas, they see through those tricks faster than you can finish the sentence. Take family guilt, for example. Maybe an aunt tries the classic, "You never call me, you don't love me anymore." A Sigma will smile politely and reply, "Auntie, you have my number too," then go right back to their life. They're not cold, they just refuse to be controlled through emotional blackmail. It happens in the workplace too. A boss might say, "We're a family here, so we need you to stay late again." For many, that guilt line works like magic. But a Sigma sees the game and responds with a calm, "Families don't usually dock paychecks, so I'll be leaving on time." It is sharp, it is witty, and it is impossible to argue against. What unsettles manipulators is that Sigmas will not bend to guilt, fear, or pity plays. The usual traps just don't stick. Instead of being cornered, they quietly step aside and let the trap collapse on its own. It is like trying to catch smoke with your hands. The harder you try, the more it slips away. The beauty of this mindset is that it creates true freedom. Emotional traps only work if you hand over the keys. Sigmas never hand them over. They understand that real relationships should not be built on guilt trips and manipulation. By refusing to play that game, they protect their peace while forcing others to show their real intentions. And that is why cornering a Sigma is impossible. They do not fight the trap. They simply walk out of it without a scratch. Number 12, a person who cannot be controlled forces others to deal with them on equal ground rather than through manipulation. A person who cannot be controlled forces others to deal with them on equal ground rather than through manipulation. That is where Sigmas stand out. They take away the shortcuts people usually rely on. You cannot guilt them, you cannot scare them, and you definitely cannot lure them with shiny distractions. When none of those tricks work, people have no choice but to face them with honesty. Think about it, most people will bend if you apply enough pressure. At work, a manager might say, "Do this or else," and 9 times out of 10, someone will cave. But a Sigma will calmly ask, "Or else what?" Suddenly the power shift is obvious. The person trying to control them realizes the bluff has no bite. It plays out in relationships too. Some people use silence, guilt, or even jealousy to keep control. A Sigma does not play that game. If their partner tries emotional chess, the Sigma simply refuses to sit at the board. That forces the other person to communicate directly, and many people are not ready for that level of honesty. Even in society, the same rule applies. Systems thrive on obedience. If you remove obedience, the system has to adapt. Sigmas live by that principle every day. They show that once you refuse to be controlled, you stop playing roles designed for you and start living life on your own terms. The funny part, this unsettles manipulators more than anger ever could. They do not know how to fight someone who refuses to play their game. It is like trying to wrestle with a shadow. You just look ridiculous. That is why a Sigma commands respect without demanding it. They force interactions to happen on equal ground. No games, no masks, just truth. And in a world full of manipulation that makes them the most unpredictable players of all. Number 13, when others play games, they refuse to join, which ruins the manipulator's entire strategy. When others play games, Sigmas refuse to join, which ruins the manipulator's entire strategy. Think about it. Every game has one thing in common. It only works if both players agree to play. Chess is useless if the other person keeps walking away from the board. Manipulation works the same way. The moment a Sigma declines the invitation, the game collapses. Take workplace politics, for example. Some people thrive on gossip, alliances, and backroom deals. They drop hints, spread stories, and wait for you to react. A Sigma hears the gossip, shrugs, and goes back to finishing their task. That refusal to play leaves the schemer looking like they are arguing with themselves. It is both hilarious and frustrating for the manipulator. The same thing happens in relationships. Some partners try to spark jealousy to keep control. They might casually mention how much attention they get from others. Most people would bite, get upset, and fall right into the trap. A Sigma, on the other hand, might just laugh and say, "Sounds like you were busy, good luck managing that fan club." Game over. Even in society, the pattern repeats. Culture pushes endless competitions for status, likes, or attention. People get trapped chasing approval points they never signed up for. Sigmas step back and say, "No thanks, I'm not interested in that scoreboard." By refusing to play, they keep their energy for things that actually matter to them. What makes this so powerful is that it leaves manipulators with no weapons. Tricks and traps need participation. Without it, they collapse like a card house in the wind. It is like trying to prank someone who never reacts. Eventually, you just look silly, and that is the quiet strength of the Sigma. They do not need to fight every game, they simply refuse to join. And in doing so, they win without even moving a piece. In final words, have you ever wondered what happens when someone decides they cannot be owned, pushed, or caged? That is the Sigma male in his purest form. The most dangerous person is not the loudest, the strongest, or the one with the flashiest status. It is the one who cannot be controlled, because once control is gone, manipulation has no place to stand. Sigmas live with a freedom that rattles people who rely on tricks and pressure. They cannot be bribed with shallow rewards, they cannot be cornered with fear, and they will never be tied down by someone else's emotional traps. And here is the funny part. This does not make them cold or heartless, it actually makes them more real. You always know where you stand with them because they deal straight, no hidden games. Now here is the encouragement. If you are wired like this, do not second-guess yourself. You may not always be understood, but that is fine. What you carry is rare, and the world needs more of it. People might call you stubborn, distant, or even strange, but in time they will see that your strength comes from the fact that you belong to yourself first. So keep sharpening that independence, keep walking away from traps, and keep choosing principles over pressure. And whenever someone tries to play games with you, remember this: you do not have to fight every battle. Sometimes the strongest move is to smile, walk away, and let the game collapse without you. Because at the end of the day, the one who cannot be controlled is not just dangerous, he is unstoppable. Thank you for watching, gents, and God bless you.